as a result of that, we're still in our 20s. Again, no media experience other than a little local radio show and no PR experience. And we're on CNN, Court TV, MSNBC, the Houston Chronicle, Der
Wow.
Spiegel, People.
All right, guys, welcome to Speak Audibly's 100% Me podcast. It is your friend, your host, your coach, Mike T. And today I am with Miss Tracy Lamourie, and she is just an amazing individual, first and foremost. But the little snippet I will give you is that she is an international award-winning publicist and the founder of Lamourie Media Incorporated, and also the author of the upcoming book, Get Repped. Tracy, thank you for joining us. How are you today?
Thank you so much. I'm doing very well. I hope you're well as well.
Oh, yes, as well as we can be in this COVID 2021
Crazy world we're living in. Yeah.
Yes, it's different. This is
This is
different.
the new networking, right? This is the
Exactly.
new.
Now we call these virtual coffees, right?
Yeah. So what city and country are we in today? You right
Exactly.
now, sir, are your voice is in Hamilton near Toronto, Canada. That's where I'm spending most of COVID, even though in an open world I'm all over the place.
In
Where are you again?
Canada.
I can't
Yes,
remember.
I am in Fort Worth, Texas.
Ah, yeah, Texas, great state
So,
of
yeah,
Texas.
so
All
whenever
right.
I hear Canada, I think of Drake and Justin Bieber. That's
Well, I'm from Toronto. Toronto, Drake is he's the guy, the six. Now it's called the six because of Drake. That
okay.
never was 416 is our area code, and that was
Gotcha.
something he invented, and that's a thing now. So, like,
That's
yeah,
awesome. And one of my mentors is Canadian as well, and so I thank Canada for allowing us to have him here. But when it comes to you, Tracy, you are a PR rep. You're so many different things. But what got you into PR?
that is a question that always takes us a little bit out of the regular business podcast mode for a minute. I'll do it as short as I can, but
Yeah.
there is a business message somehow that you'll find at the end of inspiration that it is really worth listening to. So, but first, let me take you to when I was in my 20s, and this is going to be as quick as I can do it. I was not a publicist. I never thought about being a publicist. I always wanted to be a writer growing up, so I guess to some extent I am. But I was an advocate, an activist. I had a radio show with my husband Dave Parkinson in the early 90s, mid 90s, where we covered issues like anti-racism issues and things that are called social justice today, but like actual just activist, important, bringing attention to important things. What we did in our early 20s. That radio show didn't exist anymore. It was the early days of the internet, which dates me. And somehow we found, on this little site where people had to pay to be listed, a man who was, I don't know what we were looking for. I guess we were just making a website to do some of the similar work we've been doing, talking about anti-racism issues and whatever, justice work. And so somehow, in just searching in these deep dive of the interwebs, we found this page somehow where a guy named Jimmy Dennis on death row in Philadelphia was saying that he was innocent. And we did no understanding of any of that stuff. And he was saying, I'm not looking for a pen pal. It was a pen pal site. I don't need a girlfriend. I have no way to get my word out. This is literally my only way to be heard. Please write me. Don't know what drew my husband and myself to write him. But we were young enough to be activists or whatever. I remember us thinking, how innocent can this guy be? Let's just see what he has to say. For some reason, I don't know what drew us to do that, but I'm thankful that it did. He sent back 18 pages. This is back in 1998, written closely on both sides, his entire story and legal documents that he had in his cell. Enough that anybody reading it is like, whoa, wait a minute, hold up.
Yeah.
So we started looking deeper into it. Eventually, another activist ended up paying for all the court documents, hundreds of dollars worth. So everyone deep dive, deep studied. Anyway, we had no idea what to do. We were not activists. We certainly weren't publicists. We were activists, not lawyers,
For
not
sure.
publicists. Didn't even think of that. But we knew how to make these little Netscape free websites they had at the time. So we did that. Then how do you get people to look at it? So I literally went to Alta Vista, a precursor of Google in those days,
Yeah.
and I searched press release templates. As an activist who was in marketing and sales, low level entry, but I'm a writer in my personal life, or I know how to write anyway. And I template how to write a press release for immediate release, thinking everyone's going to freak out. This is innocent guy on death row. Well, it doesn't work that way, especially in America when someone's still in prison. It's really hard to get the attention, right?
Yeah.
Now it's easier. There's podcasts talking about wrongful convictions, a different world now. Back then, not so much.
Yeah.
But we put that press release everywhere. We sent it in Europe. We sent it to Amnesty International. We sent it in Europe and all over the place. And people in Europe picked it up. A couple little places, Australia picked it up. A few other places picked it up. Because it was convincing when you went and looked into it. And then ultimately, long story short, we got a lot of attention. We started to look a little bit deeper in Texas there into the American death penalty,
Yeah.
which, we got beyond Jimmy and just sort of started, bringing attention to that. So as a result of that, we're still in our 20s. Again, no media experience other than a little local radio show and no PR experience. And we're on CNN, Court TV, MSNBC, the Houston Chronicle, Der
Wow.
Spiegel, People. Anyway, it was another 10 year. Ultimately, Jimmy Dennis was released from death row in 2017. The world, and the courts agreed that he was innocent after the legal team got involved in a whole, it's hard to tell the story in a short way. I'm sorry.
No.
But ultimately, he was released from death row in 2017.
Wow.
But about 5 years before that happened, and we still talk every single day. We're like, wow, look where we all are. So don't forget, so we're telemarketers. He's on death row. Nobody's listening to anybody.
Yeah.
10, 15 years later, now he's getting out of death row. A couple years before that happened, I had magic moment. Here's where it becomes a business story again, and everyone can listen because nobody has that experience. But everyone has something they've done, or something they love, or something
Right.
they've put passion into, where they may not be thinking that they have actually developed. My instant moment when I was sitting there about to make another 20 calls, I didn't care about telemarketing, and I realized I don't want to do this anymore. Huh?
Mm.
I'm actually I think I'm a publicist because I just realized I've gotten us. I don't know why it took me so long. It was 15 years after I've been doing it to hit me to say I've gotten us in international media, CNN, MSNBC, Court TV, again, a million,
Yeah.
based on my messaging. Further, when we went and did that international media, we were able to address it in the hot seat in America on Fox TV, talking about the death penalty, not just about Jimmy Dennis, but about other people later when we talked about the death penalty in general, where people were not necessarily innocent, right? So I
Right.
suddenly realized, hold up, I know how to do media, and I can actually take those skills and monetize them because people pay people for this. So
Yes.
I had never done it professionally, but I had, so what did I do? I think, okay, what can I do? We all have the magic power of the screen in front of us.
Yes.
In those days, there was something called Elance, but I think it's called Upwork now. I
Yes.
haven't
Yep.
used it in 8 years. But in those times, I went and I put my little everything. Life is a pitch, I say now, P with a P, not a B.
There you
And I
go.
put my best, thing forward. And a low rate, I'll do it for a lower rate. Not the bottom dollar, not the competing with the people that don't speak English, stupid rates that they have there. But I mean
Super low.
the high, because you can actually set your rate, and people hired me at that rate, and I did a really good job, and a lot of people hired me from that until I got brave enough to say, you know what, no, I'm actually a publicist now. I'm going to start Lamourie public relations and marketing, because I still didn't have the confidence to believe I could actually just become a new thing, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Never did any marketing. We had that name, the company name, for 5 years as a general partnership. During COVID, we scaled up and incorporated.
Okay.
Once I got my head around this more entrepreneur story of actually understanding I was good at what I did, but the back end I just was scared of
Yeah,
and didn't know how to do that. Just like now, my next role is going to be becoming a job creator.
that's it.
And that's another leap and a jump of understanding and role change, from that person
Yes.
just who's really good at what they do,
That's
right?
awesome. That's awesome.
So that's how that's took up half your podcast just saying how I
No.
became a publicist. But it's really hard to answer that question because otherwise, people think that I went to school or I didn't. It was literally organic. I was an activist and
Mm,
advocate who was really good at messaging and cared a lot. And I managed to, it took me a long time to be smart enough to realize that's a job. I could make that a job. And
yeah.
since I've done that, now what I do
Wow.
is still do important messaging. I don't work for countries. I don't work for giant corporations. The messaging might be questionable down the road. I work for entrepreneurs and solopreneurs and artists and people that I can actually get behind and get excited when they get a voice. So,
That's awesome. Wow. Wow. Yeah, that whole Jimmy Dennis case, I read the article on Rolling Stones, which I will place down in the show notes below so everyone can take a read because it is just
oh,
crazy.
you did? Thank
Yes,
you.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And so as someone who, the wrongful conviction, that whole era of things, actually hits close to home for me. Like I have family members who have dealt with this. And so when I seen that as part of, your journey, first and foremost, I say thank you so much for not just doing what you did, but the persistence and the consistency over that long period of time. Because when you talk about entrepreneurship as an accountability coach to small business owners, that's one of the things that knocks most people out. You know, we get to a place where we think, hey, I'm gonna start this thing, whatever it is, you call it what it is, right? And in 3 or 4 months after I build it, people will come. Like you said, right? You put the website out there, you went on Netscape, boom, I built
Yeah.
it, let them come. And then it's like crickets.
Authors, the same thing.
Yes.
They'll write a book, put all their heart, money, and time in the book. Then I'll reach out to them because I see it was published 3 weeks ago and it's not doing anything. And
Right.
then I'll be like, you need a PR push. And they're like, oh, maybe later. And I'm like, it's like you just birthed a baby and now
Yes.
you're not feeding it.
Yes.
You can't take a book and put it on the shelf. Literally, you just
Literally.
killed it. It's gonna die. Is it for
Literally.
you and your friends? Cool. But I mean, you have a window, you gotta feed it and it's
Yes.
gonna grow, or you don't, and you just made a hobby. I mean, you
That's
got something to show
exactly
your
it.
friends now, you
That's
know?
exactly it. And you're talking to someone who's authored 6 books. And again, same thing,
Oh,
you
wow, congratulations. I'm
know.
just on my first, and I've always wanted to write one.
Oh no, it's incredibly liberating. And it's like you said, for me, because that wasn't the focus, right? I was like, well, let me just get all these out here and then I'll come back around and see how it all ties into my journey,
Yeah.
right? And so now, because I've done the same exact thing, I'm like, who can I put on? Who can I put in front of the camera? Who can I push out there? What kind of platform can I build for other people, right? And now it's like, okay, I got to come back around and put my stuff out there, like we were talking about, pre-show. But that whole the consistency and the persistence, I want to talk about that for just a second because
It's
it's
a really good
huge.
question, yeah.
It's huge. What made you? I get, Jimmy Dennis, that story on the back end, it's huge. I mean, it's very heartfelt. Like I said, reading that Rolling Stones article was like, wow. But you didn't see the Rolling Stones article when you seen that little pen pal site. You didn't see all that thing. So what gave you and your husband the heart to really pursue it the way that you did to get this man off death row?
So the first question I cannot, the one that I can't, I still can't ask myself and can't answer is what made us write initially. That's the one that I
Yeah.
wish I could be back in that moment. Really,
Wow.
what made us write? Because we had no background. Why would we want to write a death row prisoner? Like that's the part where it could have so easily not happened, right?
Right.
Once we started, and now looking back, oh my God, thank you for 25 years of doing this. It sounds epic, and it's hard to tell the story without it sounding epic, right?
Yeah.
And I sound like I'm a hero. But you know what? When you do things, the whole point of it that Jimmy and I were talking about this yesterday was like, and I was on another podcast, Jimmy, and they asked me how I started. And I try to tell the story and it starts, and I try to articulate to him and he interrupts me. He's like, stop right there. Because I'm like, I'm not trying to sound like a hero. He's like, I don't even want to hear that, sister. It's our story. And you can't tell your business story without that. Right.
Right.
So but what happened? Like, we really believed in him. But, I don't know. There's more to your question because what makes people not lose hope. Maybe it's because I
Yeah.
mean he never lost hope. At the end of every letter was
Mm,
always praying for the truth 89 or 98, 99, praying for the truth 2000, praying for the truth 20,001. And he always believed this is going to be the year, this is going to be the year, this is going to be the year it comes out.
wow.
And there was always some bit of good news. We could do this. And then now Australia's doing an article. And now look, somebody in Turkey is talking about it in the news. So there's always little things to hang our hopes on, right?
Wow.
And I don't know what, because we should have him on to talk about that one day because after I don't know how you get the strength, and even I mean after 20, we did not know about the things he was dealing with because he didn't tell us about the attacks, about the journey inside prison. He kept all that from us. Like we were like in a little fantasy land where we would think about that sometime, but it wasn't part of the conversations we had in 15 minutes when he was talking about this is what we need to do, talk to that person, call that. So we were just very,
Mm,
always he kept us going on like almost like a business track. I joke now, I go, oh, my boss is out of prison now. You're the boss to call 15 minutes and now he lied, cracks up. But we only had that 15 minutes, right?
yeah.
Because the call would cut off. So he'd be like, do this, do this, do this. And we would just do it. So, but he has a thing, never, never give up. It's on a t-shirt now. And I know it sounds trite, it sounds whatever, but tell me that's a trite saying when a guy who spent 25 years, not just on death row in a cage, but where everyone's telling you, everyone around you thinks you're garbage. The government can kill you. We can kill you. So we can treat you however we want. You don't matter. So there's more than just that you're in a
Mm,
cage. You're dirt. You're nothing. You're dehumanized. The world doesn't care. The door is shut. You're done.
yeah.
Forget about it. Go lay down. Forget it. You're gonna die. This is the day we're gonna kill you. Oh, you missed out.
Wow.
So, but you can still say never, never give up and get through that. So we couldn't like not be
Wow.
by his side, which we got to know him and went and visited him and would continually. So I really think it was like a project manager. Honestly, he should be the one
Wow.
on entrepreneur shows talking, because now looking back, how did he should be the question, from a cell on death row with only letters, and
Yeah.
then once a couple of calls with people who were motivated enough to help him, eventually strangers in another country, you know, a bunch of white idiots in America and Canada would think about all of a sudden getting engaged with it. How did he manage to, you know, create that
Yeah.
and sustain it? You can't do that with a lie. You can't do that with a
Right.
whatever. Then you've got to be real. And he also, I want to say too, he was never a cause. He was never like, and we never treated him that way, and it never felt that way. It's why we joked he was like the boss.
Yeah.
If he didn't, he was never like, oh, thank you, David. I mean, of course he's thank you and grateful for sure, right? But he was never like, oh, wise and wonderful. He was never walking on eggshells with us because we were gonna, maybe these benefactors or these people who were helping. We weren't financially helping at the time. We had no money. Though
Mhm.
some people came in and financially helped, but our relationship was about messaging, helping, right?
For
And
sure.
he was never treating us in a way that if I say something, like if I disagree with them or whatever, that they're gonna disappear. It was always real. It was always like, we had a couple disagreements, not like, but I mean, a direction, the kind of thing you
For
would
sure.
have in
For
any
sure.
kind of project, right? I was thinking we get heated or whatever. I knew we were always fully respectful, but like, you know, nobody being afraid. We're not afraid of going to say something that's not going to be right. This guy, he's not afraid. We working together like a team. We were
For
really a
sure.
team, and
I
we
mean,
stayed that the team was strong. So that's a business a lesson with whatever too. We kept the focus, and somebody kept us believing all the time,
and literally
even when
his
it was.
life was on the line.
But a lot of people, that happens and they can't do it. They
Right.
go to that cell. There's a lot of innocent people, my friend, who've been killed too, because they can't fight that. They can't find that. And who do they get? And how do they talk? And how do they? And everything in life is communication. And if Jimmy hadn't been able to communicate to us in that letter, and some people can't even write or read on death row. So, but if he
Right.
hadn't been able to communicate to us
Yeah.
what happened, then
Wow.
we were, or even write that articulate little message that got us to think, huh, let's write that back.
For sure. Wow.
So it's all, so again, back to communication. And a lot of people don't know how to communicate their story, whether it's business or whatever. And that's why they don't think of the fact that they have a story. They
Exactly.
think about advertising. They don't think about having somebody interview them and put the microphone in front of their mouth. But I don't care if you mow lawns for a living, if you're the maid at a hotel. I
Mm,
don't care. Literally, I don't care what you do for a living. I could get you media opportunities. My client list is celebrities, right? I'm sure I have like authors and public speakers and TV guy, like a producer, all that stuff. But people are surprised when I run down my list of other clients, which is
right.
like, I've got a podiatrist, I've got a biomedicine expert, I've got a psychologist, I've got a diversity expert, I've got a luxury real estate agent guy. I've got a,
That's
so
awesome.
I got an SEO marketing guy, and all of them I get media attention. So it's really about the mindset and seeing yourself as an expert. And I always say, you build up yourself to see yourself as that credible expert
Yeah.
so that you can build up your brand, which could be about getting your human rights message out, or it could be about making your $1 million if that's what you got to do, or it could be, but once you do that and you have that $1 million and or that platform, what do you do with it?
Exactly. Exactly. Well, let's talk about that for just 1 second before we get off here. The importance of that brand and that brand image, because being a PR expert as you are at this point, right? I mean, you'd have to have built something to be able to put yourself out there. How is it that you are able to talk to these individuals who feel like, I'm just a podiatrist, I'm just a veterinarian? How is it that you're able to talk to them and not necessarily convince them, because it's not a whole lot of convincing that needs to take place? That's the wrong word. But how do you get them to understand that they have a brand that deserves to be out there and for people to see
Yeah,
it?
no, convincing is actually a good word, because it's
Okay.
one thing to be faithful about their brand and to know they have a good product. But it's another thing when you're like, okay, but I can make you this. Okay, so if you're selling the book, that's fine, but only 20% of media does book reviews, or even 10%. So only 20% of media is ever going to talk about a new book that's out.
Right.
So how do you access the other 80% of media? The other 80% of media talks about ideas,
Right.
and they talk to experts. So fiction, we're not talking about fiction here. There's different audiences and different ways to get fiction. But if it's a nonfiction book about anything, the simple fact that you have that, now you're an expert in that thing. So great, we can
Exactly.
go sell your book and get you in, where, and it's the same with book is one thing, but it could be a product too. Let's take it away from the book and say you sell, widgets or whatever, right? Or you
Right.
sell these red jugs.
For sure.
So you're never going to get in the news talking about the red jug, right? Like
Right.
talking about, but I mean, you can get into the news. You have to think about, and maybe it's a bad example because I haven't studied enough to know what the angles would be. But I mean, no matter what there is, there's an angle. Why is it like something to do with the plastic? Is it something to do with the manufacturing thing? Something to do with how it's helped this lady? Something to do. There's always a story that you can build around the product.
Mm,
Then there's the story around you. Why are you there? Why is that even the thing that you're in? What do you believe about it? What have you brought to, you know?
yeah.
And then on the other side of that, who are you other than that business guy? So if like if you're like, a drag, you're into like drag racing or whatever, you got other things that have nothing to do with business. Tell me that as a publicist too, or think about that too, because
Right.
there are a whole other media opportunities. Maybe you could go in talking about your passion about, drag racing
Right.
or, puppy raising or whatever it is. When they introduce you, they're going to say Mike Wilson, he's the host of the podcast, whatever. So you get a little bit of your thing in there, a little bit, and then it's just a bit of social proof. It's all about like gathering. That's the phrase now is social proof,
That's it.
but whatever you want to call it, third party cred. That it's not advertising, advertorial, or editorial versus advertorial, and it's
Mm,
hard for entrepreneurs to get their head around that. But you
for
have to
sure.
really think harshly before you even reach out to media. And there's a lot of free sources that can connect you to media that are looking for you as an expert. But before you even go there, it's all about that pitch. Make sure your pitch and who you are, what you talk about, and even a couple suggestions. For example, Tracy can not just give my bio, but say, for example, if I was reaching out to, my local media, that's great. You have a nice bio, whatever, right? Give them a couple of ideas like
For sure.
Tracy can make a compelling segment to talk about how small businesses can get themselves, known without spending a dollar in advertising. Oh, that sounds like a good segment. You give them a couple of things and you spoon feed them. And people don't understand, the people you see in media, it's not you, I'm just a this, and those people are
Right.
different. Mostly they're the ones that have a publicist, so they presented the story, or they thought about, they know someone in media, so they mentioned the story to them. So it's all about, that's how they get their contacts. They don't
Yes.
Media doesn't go search far and wide for the very best doctor in the whole world to get their quote that night at six
Right.
o'clock. They just need a doctor with the credentials who can speak credibly, look like he knows what he's talking about.
Right.
So what do? Who do we know? Oh yeah, that guy. He says a press release a month. This time we're in Canada where cannabis is legal, and cannabis is it's a huge, obviously
For
emerging
sure.
industry, right? Like giant. We are second year now. I mean, we're talking. It's corporate. It's like all the bankers, all those people are now in that space. It's not like a
Right.
little thing, and everyone else is like, hey, what about us? We started it, and all the
Right.
bankers are like, we
Got
got
him.
it, So, so we're talking about it. Just so you know, your listeners know, we're talking about a hugely corporate space, not like a
Yes.
little hippy dippy thing in Canada right now, right? And it's the same as in that. I had a client that just before that happened, maybe 9 months before legalization, when it was still, oh wow, it's what we're talking about. And was a mom in a suburban. Our pitch was like, and she was doing like, um, I don't remember, like just like little like skin products, nothing, not smoking anything. It was like,
For
but it
sure.
was an introduction to talking about cannabis medicine. And our whole pitch at the time was like, suburban mom of two, like that was a big deal,
Yes.
9 months before. Now that would be like whatever, right? But
Right.
because we had done that when nobody was doing it, and it was, we said it. Why we got some media, not a little bit, we got quite a few interviews leading up to legalization for her. But the more important part of the story is that she'd been sent out by my work to like 200 reporters across Canada. So
Wow.
even though maybe before legalization only 3 or 4 did stories about her, which were great stories, all of those people, when it was time, when, oh, Bob, go write an article about legalization, this legalization thing coming up, and they're like, oh shit, because reporters don't know everything about everything.
Right.
They got to count on their sources. So he's gonna go look in his email. Who was that? Remember a couple months ago we got some email.
Exactly.
And now he's gonna, because she freaked out. She got literally on the same day. She called me. She said, "I don't know what's happening. Is this okay? They didn't call you, my publicist. They're just reaching out to me." I laugh. I'm like, "That's the goal.
Right.
That's because we did a whole year of work in the media. So
Yeah.
when they search your name, they don't find Tracy Lamourie, the publicist. No, they find you,
Yeah.
and they Google your name, and they go to your website and they email you. And on that same day, like she got the big, like honestly, the big national, CBC, which is our national network, a couple
Okay.
other, they were all calling her. And then she was in our version of Canadian Press, which is like Associated Press.
Okay.
So one article goes across 200 things. All of a sudden, so now she's in like 500 media across, all
Wow.
because we've done a couple press releases saying, oh, look at it. that they hadn't even picked up.
Wow.
So it's about letting the media know about you as a source too. And yeah, but again, I can't stress enough. Like if you have a marketing budget, think about putting part of it toward PR for even 1 month, even if you
Right.
think you won't do it after, just so you can see the kind of strategies and the way your publicist places you. And I work internationally. Hi,
There
you
you
can
go.
come to me. But even if you don't, like, just to see the strategies and how they place you, the kind of results they get, and it really opens up your mind
That's
to a
awesome.
whole different way of doing business. And that ultimately, obviously, is the credibility of if you're a real estate agent, somebody else is a real estate agent, and somebody's going to both your sites to see who to work with, and one of them has international acclaim, 15 articles.
Yes.
It's human nature, and it doesn't prove that you're really the best agent. The other guy could be a better agent. Who knows?
Right.
Maybe he spent all his time doing 100 sales, and you've only got 80, and he's got half of your clients, but nobody knows about it, so he loses.
That's it. And that's awesome. Again, that speaks close home because I am also a licensed realtor. I've done a lot of different
You
things.
are.
I am just
Okay, then after this conversation, we're talking because I'm telling you, for some reason, the reason I use realty there as an example
yes.
is, and even though 80 or 90% of entrepreneurs are the same, they don't realize all the opportunities are leaving on the table.
Right.
For some reason, with real estate, I'm not joking. Like, strike me down right now if this is a word of exaggeration. Every day, daily, I see at least 3 requests from media, whether they're like the realtor or whether it's Good Housekeeping or whatever,
Yeah.
looking for quotes from realtors. You'd think they would just call a realtor
Right.
because, everybody knows 50 realtors or at
That's
least one,
exactly it.
right?
Yes,
So
ma'am.
you think when media is looking, but clearly they don't. And so I've spent a lot of time going, no, I need to get a realtor client because I'm literally seeing these opportunities I don't have once I'm just like, I don't use them.
Yeah.
But I think it's because when they look, they don't want to have to explain to somebody what they need. They want somebody who's media
Exactly.
friendly, who knows how to give a good quote, who's not going to get nervous in front of the screen.
That's
So
exactly
there's a
it.
difference between someone who's good at what they do and someone who's good at talking about it. And when they're looking for
Exactly.
something quick, they don't want to, and realtors are notorious for you call them, they won't stop calling you. So they don't want to call and be like, I have a media opportunity, and then it turns out to be the wrong guy. He's not a
Exactly.
good fit. They don't have the time. So they come to publicists and these services that we use and say, hey, this is what we're looking for with a deadline of 2 o'clock tomorrow for Good Housekeeping magazine. Tell us what color kitchen is more likely to sell a house. Tell us
Right.
what the market is like. Like, honestly, I'm not kidding, daily.
That's
So
crazy. Which
media for
yes,
Mike
no, that's
talking about real estate. We gotta talk.
that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I can talk about quite a few things, but talking about you just a little bit more here because as you guys can see, not only is Tracy incredibly passionate about what she does, she's good at what she does. And so, Tracy, what is the best way for our listeners who say, you know what, I'm really interested in getting my brand recognition to be able to have someone out there and just like your upcoming book says, get repped. I want to get repped. I want representation. What's the best way to contact you?
To me, yeah. I'm very accessible. I'm happy to set up a 15-minute, half an hour consult to continue this conversation with people about how it can specifically affect them. Like, we can change the conversation here in a general manner to tell me what you do.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you real things that I can promise you that I could do for you over the next month if you work with me. So yeah, they can reach me at lamoriemedia.com or Facebook where I live, Tracy Lamourie, Lamourie. That's Lamour with an
For
IE,
sure.
like French for love with an IE.
Ah,
And it's the real name. I don't.
that's
People ask me if
awesome.
it's a pet peeve. It's not. Um,
Speaking of
and
publicists,
right. And funnily enough, Tracy means, I didn't even know this till 2 years ago. It means bold and courageous or
ah,
fierce maiden warriors. I'm like, bold and courageous
come
and
on.
love. All right, I'll take that.
That's
But
awesome.
maybe names matter.
That's it.
you
That's
know.
exactly it.
Um, But Instagram to Tracy Lamourie PR Media, by email, LamouriePR@gmail.com. And I am thrilled to have a conversation with anybody again.
Awesome.
Don't be like, oh, but would she work with me? I'm just, no, I work across. That's what I love, is to work with solopreneurs and entrepreneurs, show them
Awesome.
how we can build their brand, because that's fun and it's exciting and it never gets old to be like, I got you in Reader's Digest. Literally yesterday I was doing a podcast,
Yeah,
and as I was on the podcast, I'm looking at my email at the same time because multitask.
exactly.
And a reporter came in from a pitch I'd done 15 minutes before the podcast
Wow.
saying my client was in an article, Reader's Digest. And I'm like, yeah, I can't wait to get off the podcast so I can tell them and jump up and
That's
down. And it
awesome.
never gets old, no matter how many. I got the same client in the New York Times last month.
That's
And that's just
awesome.
responding to those. So these opportunities are available for you. and for your expertise. And also we create opportunities by you tell us what you're doing and we make messaging about that. So
That's
yeah, I would
awesome.
love to add, anybody interesting, ethical, and awesome to my client base. That's number one. You got to pass my ethical
There you
there. You got to
go.
be doing cool things with good messaging. You can't be wanting to put out some negative crap. I
Yeah,
don't know. Yeah, I'm not your girl.
that's
But if you're gonna
awesome.
change the world or just change your own life by becoming an entrepreneur and building your idea and being positive for the people around you, then I'm your
Yes.
girl.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And here at Speak Audibly, we're definitely changing the world. And so that's greatness. I'm so glad we were able to have you on the show. Just one last question for you, just to kick things into a different gear here. If you were to say, you know what, with everything COVID related, I have to go off the map. I have to get off the grid. I'm going to go dark for a little bit. You're not going to hear anything from me for quite some time. What would be the very last piece of encouragement you would give our listeners and our watchers today?
Okay, I got a good one. We talked a bit earlier about Jimmy Dennison is never, never give up. And even him sometimes, though, he never, never gives up. He's been through a lot. And sometimes, you get a little PTSD and you get a little stressed out. And so when him and I are talking now, I tell him about a quote that I heard. This fits us perfectly, but it fits all of you guys too. That I heard, I don't even know who said it, but my favorite quote is, um, we didn't get this far to only get this far.
Mm,
So no matter whether you're with us, it's like we didn't get from telemarketers in death row to being in Rolling Stone and being an international award-winning publicist to end here, dude. Get up, be cool. It's time for you to get your Grammy next. We're not
that's right.
that's not over. That's what I say to him. But to all of us, even if you haven't done epic things yet, or even if you don't think you're ever going to do epic things, even if you literally just got this far, means I got up today and got through it, didn't jump off a cliff yesterday, because a
Mm,
lot of people have had really hard struggles this year and they're looking and they don't see an end to it, right? And
right.
and, and they don't know what's going on. So, but honestly, ask yourself, every single person has, I don't care whether you're up here or down there, you've gone through a whole lot. And did you do all that? Did you go through those
Mm,
cries, that pain, to get here, to not keep going?
right.
To let these assholes get you down,
Right.
to jump off a cliff, to kill you. People are thinking crazy things. So that's what I want to leave people with. You didn't do all that. You didn't do all that to do that.
Right.
Keep on going. Just do it. Don't dream it, be it, like the Rocky Horror Picture Show says.
That's
But you
awesome.
didn't get this far to only get this far. You don't have an option. Keep on going is your option.
That's
And there's going to
awesome.
be something better on the other side. Never, never
That
give
is
up, Jimmy Dennis.
awesome. That's awesome, guys. Never, never give up. Remember, you didn't get this far just to get this far. Miss Tracy, thank you so much for your heart, for your passion, for your perseverance. Thank you so much for just what you do in the PR world and for all of your clients, because I know they are in love with you for what you do, because you are great at what you do. Guys, if you enjoyed this podcast, be sure that you hit that subscribe button and that like button, and be sure to go into the show links because all of Tracy's information will be down there. Reach out to her and get repped. Again, this is Coach Mike T with Speak Audibly's podcast 100% Me. Thank you guys so much. We'll talk to you soon. Goodbye.